should be given. The general notion of the distinction which the terms are designed to suggest can be gathered from the following approximate definitions. Consumption capital consists of goods in a form to satisfy wants directly. That is, goods which afford a direct sustenance to the workers, such as food, clothes, house room, etc. Auxiliary or instrumental capital is so called because it consists of all the goods that aid labor in production. Under this head come tools, machines, factories, railways, docks, ships, etc., and raw materials of all kinds. But, of course, a man's clothes assist him in his work and are instrumental in keeping him warm, and he derives a direct benefit from the shelter of his factory, as he does from the shelter of his house. We may follow Mill in distinguishing circulating capital, which fulfills the whole of its office in the production in which it is engaged by a single use, from fixed capital, which exists in a durable shape and the return to which is spread over a period of corresponding duration. The customary point of view of the business man is that which is most convenient for the economist to adopt when discussing the production of goods for a market, and the causes which govern their exchange value. But there is a broader point of view which the business man, no less than the economist, must adopt when he studies the causes which govern the material well-being of the community as a whole. Ordinary conversation may pass from one point of view to another without any formal note of the change. For if a misunderstanding arises, it soon becomes manifest, and confusion is cut short by a question or a volunteered explanation. But the economist may take no risks of that sort. He must make prominent any change in his point of view or in his uses of terms. His path might have seemed smoother for the time if he had passed silently from one use to another, but in the long run better progress is made by a clear indication of the meaning attached to each term in every doubtful case. Let us then, during the remainder of this chapter, deliberately adopt the social in contrast with the individual point of view. Let us look at the production of the community as a whole, and at its total net income available for all purposes. That is, let us revert nearly to the point of view of a primitive people who are chiefly concerned with the production of desirable things and with their direct uses, and who are little concerned with exchange and marketing. From this point of view, income is regarded as including all the benefits which mankind derive at any time from their efforts, in the present and in the past, to turn nature's resources to their best account. The pleasure derived from the beauties of the rainbow or the sweet taste of the fresh morning air are left out of the reckoning, not because they are unimportant, nor because the estimate would in any way be vitiated by including them, but solely because reckoning them in would serve no good purpose, while it would add greatly to the length of our sentences and the prolixity of our discussions. For a similar reason, it is not worth while to take separate account of the simple services which nearly everyone renders to himself, such as putting on his clothes, though there are a few persons who choose to pay others to do such things for them. Their exclusion involves no principle, and time spent by some controversial writers on discussing it has been wasted. It simply follows the maxim de minimis non curat lex. A driver who, not noticing a pool in his way, splashes a passer-by, is not held to have done him legal injury, though there is no distinction in principle between his act and that of another who by a similar lack of attention did serious harm to someone else. A man's present labor yields him income directly, when devoted to his own use, and he looks to be paid for it in some form or another if he devotes it as a matter of business to the service of others. Similarly, any useful thing which he has made or acquired in the past, or which has been handed down to him under the existing institutions of property, by others who have so made or acquired it, is generally a source of material benefit to him directly or indirectly. If he applies it in business, this income generally appears in the form of money. But a broader use of this term is occasionally needed, which embraces the whole income of benefits of every sort which a person derives from the ownership of property however applied. It includes, for instance, the benefits which he gets from the use of his own piano, equally with those which a piano dealer would win by letting out a piano on hire. The language of common life, while averse to so broad a use of the term income as this even when discussing social problems, yet habitually includes a certain number of forms of income other than money income. The income tax commissioners count a dwelling house inhabited by its owner as a source of taxable income, though it yields its income of comfort directly. They do this not on any abstract principle, but partly because of the practical importance of house room, partly because the ownership of a house is commonly treated in a business fashion, and partly because the real income accruing from it can easily be separated off and estimated. They do not claim to establish any absolute distinction in kind between the things which their rule includes and those which it excludes. Jevons, regarding the problem from a purely mathematical point of view, was justified in classing all commodities in the hands of consumers as capital. But some writers, while developing this suggestion with great ingenuity, have treated it as a great principle, and that appears to be an error in judgment. A true sense of proportion requires us not to burden our work with the incessant enumeration of details of secondary importance, of which no account is taken in customary discourse, and which cannot even be described without offending against popular conventions. This brings us to consider the use of the term capital from the point of view of inquiries into the material well-being of society as a whole. Adam Smith said that a person's capital was that part of his stock from which he expects to derive an income, and almost every use of the term capital which is known to history has corresponded more or less closely to a parallel use of the term income. In almost every use, capital has been that part of a man's stock from which he expects to derive an income. By far the most important use of the term capital in general, i.e., from the social point of view, is in the inquiry how the three agents of production, land, that is, natural agents, labor, and capital, contribute to producing the national income, or the national dividend as it will be called later on, and how that income is distributed among the three agents. And this is an additional reason for making the terms capital and income correlative from the social as we did from the individual point of view. Accordingly, it is proposed in this treatise to count as part of capital from the social point of view all things other than land which yield income that is generally reckoned as such in common discourse. Together with similar things in public ownership, such as government factories, the term land being taken to include all free gifts of nature, such as mines, fishery, etc., which yield income. Thus it will include all things held for trade purposes, whether machinery, raw material, or finished goods, theaters and hotels, home farms and houses, but not furniture or clothes owned by those who use them. For the former are, and the latter are not, commonly regarded as yielding income by the world at large, as is shown by the practice of the income tax commissioners. This usage of the term is in harmony with the common practice of economists of treating social problems in broad outline to start with, and reserving minor details for later consideration. It is in harmony also with their common practice of taking labor to include those activities, and those only, which are regarded as the source of income in this broader use of the term. Labor, together with capital and land thus defined, are the sources of all that income of which account